What up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Gen Report. I'm your host, Pablo, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Brian Schultz. Marvel Roundup. Charlie Cox talks creative reset after season 1 and more on season 3. We keep on returning to season 1. Vision Quest coming in October. I have a funny story to tell you about that. Ebon Moss-Bachrach talks Doomsday experience. And Alan Cumming on Doomsday characters and X2 Revisited. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. Charlie Cox, Ryan, what has he been saying? We keep on dumping on season 1. It's not just we. I'm talking about the people on the show.
Yeah.
Keep referring back to season 1 and trying to recover from that experience. Trying to get the fans back. What has he been saying?
I always love this, right? This is the, Chris Hemsworth after Love and Thunder. This is the, every time like a championship sports team breaks up, you always get the expose afterwards about like what was really going on and like why they fell apart. Like it always happens, right? Always get that. So I would say the first shots got fired by Wilson Bethel when he kind of was open about saying like he was bummed about how season 1 turned out. And he's like, man, we should have come back with a banger. We just didn't have it, And now Charlie Cox himself, after season 2 is over, now admits to Josh Horowitz that season 1 wasn't it. And they knew it at the time. So quote from Cox, once we got into production, it very quickly became apparent that the lessons we had learned from the Ben Affleck movie, tough reference, that we had got right in the show, meaning the Netflix show, we were now almost unlearning a bit. And that the character really does work in a serialized platform, but also when it's darker, grittier, and there's less tongue-in-cheek levity. Huge credit to Marvel and those guys. It takes a huge amount of courage and money to make a U-turn like that. We are indebted to them, and they really listened to Vincent and I, end quote. I mean, that is shots fired.
Damn, man, I wish we could talk to Charlie Cox now because we can really talk openly about how bad season 1 came off.
I feel like they would do a Mystery Science 3000 with like him and like Bethel and D'Onofrio would be sitting in the theater with the popcorn, watching season 1 and just trashing it. Like, I feel like they would do that right now with these comments.
Brian, I got to get Melvin Taylor on the show. Remember I spoke to you about him.
Yeah.
He was on the original season 1 stuff they already did. He showed up as a character. I think he was actually talking to Vincent D'Onofrio. I'm not sure, but he was. So I would like to hear from him what sort of lines were being said. What was the tone of the lines and how they were being delivered? Those are interesting questions. And having gone through the success of the Netflix, to not hear that same praise. And obviously recognizing from jump that this isn't the route that we should be going. But they said, whatever, they're paying us and there's too much opposition and we got to start doing this. And they did it. And then Kevin was like, can't do this. Who knows if Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio was talking to Kevin? Because Kevin.
I think so. Here's what we have to assume. You have to assume this paragraph that I just read to you, that's the diplomatic version. Because Cox is still there, right? Cox is still in the part. He's not gonna roll the bus that hard over everyone. So this is the gentle version of the truth. And I think this is still, let's unpack this. First off, he throws the Ben Affleck movie reference in there. That's rough, man. Basically saying like, He says everything we learned at Netflix from that movie, Marvel went back and basically took us back toward the Ben Affleck. That's exactly what he's saying.
Look at that shot from the first episode when Daredevil suits up. Look at that sequence. And that is what he is talking about. Go ahead.
So that tells you the people in the room, the Marvel people, when they got a hold of this property, were like, we know exactly what we're going to do with this. And it wasn't to honor what Netflix did at all. They never had any intention of doing that. They had their own version, which Cox is telling you was much more toward the Mark Steven Johnson directed Daredevil movie, which is not good. And then later on, when he says the character really does work when it's darker and grittier and there's less tongue-in-cheek levity. He's telling you what was in the... I mean, we know from season 1 there was more silliness. He's telling you the silliness and the goofiness and the humor was cranked to like James Gunn levels. That's what he's telling you. Like, I actually think, I think the She-Hulk tone is probably a lot closer to what they intended.
It's going to be carried over to that, yo.
I think that's why he was in that show, because the original vision was actually they were going to pivot Daredevil into that motif. That's crazy. Like, I have to hope. I know we've heard Kevin gets a lot of rope for how busy he was. I have to hope that all of this that Cox is talking about really was something that like Kevin was just too busy putting out other fires and he didn't know. He really didn't know the extent to which the creatives were going down this path.
Kevin had to have sat down. And so I want to know, how many episodes did he get through to say, enough? We're going a different direction with it. I don't care how much money we got to spend. We'll backgirl it, loss, whatever. But we can't put this out.
This is a random poll. But I was R.I.P. Kobe Bean Bryant. I don't know if you remember, there's a you can find on YouTube. He was on Jimmy Kimmel's show late in his career when he was recovering from his ACL injury, I think it was. Or no, his Achilles injury. And the Lakers are bad, obviously, like really bad at this point.
He had him listen to his teammates.
Yes, they're celebrating like a win over a terrible team, and they're all like clowning on camera and celebrating and shouting and dapping each other up. And they cut to Kobe's face, and he's sitting there like, if I could heat vision these people through the screen and incinerate them, I would. And like I'm hoping that was Kevin when he realized what this character had been turned into. I'm hoping he had the Kobe face of like, I am going to kill and fire everyone responsible for this. And that's why they reset the show. Because who thought this was a good idea?
Yeah. You get happy when you're like the Little Giants that one time, you know? But when at these levels, your goal is to win.
And win big, like win meaningful games, right? Win awards, like win audience.
Netflix was the bar. You chose to go below it. Why? To be different. Someone said, we could do it differently. It'll be unique. It'll be our brand. This is whatever reason you had to make this show what it was. I would be astonished if these people still work there. And I guess it's a touchy subject because, you know, people are getting laid off, people are trying to look for jobs and stuff like that. But this is you pivot those. I mean, I don't know, man. It's tough.
I get it. But at the end of the day, these jobs are meritocracy measured in terms of audience and success. And we talk about how much the audience has eroded for these characters in this show. Like, how could you not point the finger directly at season 1 as kind of the seminal moment where things really went off the rails? And it's like, what I also think is Charlie Cox, to sign off this paragraph, they really did listen to Vincent and I. That is him washing his hands of that entire debacle and saying, well, D'Onofrio and I were in the ear of the people saying, you are ruining this for us. That's what he's saying with that quote.
It would be interesting to me to understand how he felt when he was saying the lines that he was saying for what we didn't see. Interesting.
I mean, let's put it this way. You know, your point about Melvin, there is definitely like a documentary somewhere about this show that could be made, right? Like what really happened behind the scenes of this enterprise. Because it's, again, when you hear these quotes from the people at the center of it who are trying to be nice and yet can't help but basically throw gas on this fire. Like, it must have been horrible in that room initially. Like when they set out, like there must have been some real tension on that set somewhere.
And conversations between, oh man, that's what we got to get big so we can have these conversations with these people. Because what I'm saying is, like, what were you, like, this is, if I was asking Charlie Cox or even Vincent D'Onofrio, what were the conversations you guys were having after being on set for the first time, saying the lines you were given?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, reading scripts, giving feedback.
Where did the rebellion begin?
Which character were you? Were you Saul? Were you Luthen? Where were you in this?
You know what I'm saying? Because I'm sure this is him and Cox talking about, who do we talk to about this?
Yeah.
Do we go to Kevin? Who do we go to? Because I don't want to. But you're actors, right? You're professionals. You're Henry Cavill. You do what you're asked to be told.
Yeah, there's definitely that aspect, especially in this machine where like you're contracted for multiple things, right? It's a little easier if it's a one-off to do the deep play. I'm going to diva. I'm going to walk off the set. I'm planting a flag. It's a little harder when you're like in the collective. So
interesting stuff, man. Interesting stuff.
I just think it's saying something to me, the way this is being framed. Like I do not think we have heard the last of this, and I think it'll be very interesting to see if season 3 is successful in kind of rehabilitating the Defenders, and if Brand New Day does bring, if the audience starts to come back and there starts to be more buzz, I think you're going to have more dirt put on the grave of season 1. I don't think we've gotten to the end of that.
What is he saying about season 3?
So a couple of things here from Cox and from Brad Winderbaum saying that season 3, see, again, I think this is good stuff, actually. They're actually going to separate season 3 from the continuity of the first 2 seasons a bit. So whereas season 1 and 2 flowed chronologically right into one another, season 3, he said, we might skip forward about a year and to find and saying the characters will be in quite different places. So Matt Murdock in prison, which is something from the comics, Wilson Fisk in exile in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Winderbaum says, quote, there'll be a time jump, not too significant. We're not jumping ahead 5 years or anything, but maybe a year or so. And yeah, Fisk's exile becomes its own story. So it's fun watching these two characters be in their own different places in season 3, to which Dario Scartapane added, under no circumstance will they undo the I am Daredevil revelation. So society and Matt will have to cope with the knowledge that he is. And so Scartapane says, quote, now we can work with a totally different Fisk. There is no Vanessa. There is no network of power. There is no mayor's office. So what does Fisk at his core trying to climb back into power look like? End quote.
Here's the thing. What was the topic of conversation that we had prior to this episode, which was we're getting tired of the Kingpin situation? I don't know how I feel about it yet, but let's see how they pull it off. I'm curious because at the same time, we also mentioned that they're going to be exploring other characters as well.
Mm-hmm. Other villains.
Yes. So that's interesting. So we'll see.
I think the right move, I mean, we'll see what they do. I think the right move is this idea of Fisk climbing back to power. I have no problem with. What I would do is I would have it be less visible. I would return to more the ideas of season 1 of the Netflix show, where he's the employer, where he's not on screen nearly as much. I would even have situations where, you kind of always have it in the bag. You can create that twist of like, oh, Kingpin's the one who was actually behind this, like underneath it. But I don't need to spend entire episodes necessarily inside with Vincent D'Onofrio in season 3. And I hope they treat him as a precious commodity. So, but clearly this is like time jump, Defenders coming back, Fisk is no longer mayor, Matt's in prison. I mean, they are clearly trying to distance themselves from the arc of the first 2 seasons, for better or for worse. I think it'll be for better, but
absolutely.
Yeah, a new show.
Absolutely. Because now it's time to sort of try to get back to normal. And what that looks like, especially with Cox in jail, and what that looks like if if it involves getting him out and what Matt is trying to accomplish or how he gets out, I don't know. We'll see. Vision Quest coming in October.
Confirmed a date finally. Yep.
Yeah. I joined a group. Alex Bernstein has a writing group. And they write scenes and they have a prompt every week so that they can sort of write from that prompt, write a scene. And it was the ship of Theseus.
Oh.
It reminded me of that conversation Vision was having about that thought of if you set sail on this journey and along the way you rebuild it, is it the same ship? So I found it funny that in that coincidence that, you know, we were going to have this conversation. So Vision Quest coming in October, Brian, I haven't heard too much about it. I'm curious to see what sort of exploratory missions that he's on. What is he trying to discover? Is he like that dude from Justice League, the android, trying to discover what purpose he has?
Amazo?
Yes.
He was tough. He was tough to stop.
They couldn't stop him. And Lex Luthor stopped him.
Yeah.
Or sort of stopped his momentum. But what's going on with Vision Quest? What have they said?
The thing is that I have to admit, I'm not like super enthused for this show, but I'm curious about two things. One is they frame it as this is the third and final part of WandaVision plus Agatha. They're calling it an ending of sorts, right? So I'm just curious as to what that means. The second is this is really the first show where they're using the traditional showrunner model. So Terry Matalas, who was the showrunner for Picard, which was a very good 3-season show on Paramount Plus, he's running the third season to bring this to an end. So I'm just kind of curious to see, like, how does that change the look and feel of what we get? I think we've started to see, like, you know, Scar to Pain with what he's doing with Born Again is kind of like a half measure in that regard. But this is the first show where they brought somebody in, start to finish. He's running the season, and they're calling it a culmination. I don't know what that means. Obviously, White Vision has connections to West Coast Avengers. They've never really like made a full move on that. Like, I don't know what they plan to do, but I'm at least like moderately intrigued. October 14th. You know, we got a busy month that month, obviously, with Clayface and Street Fighter and a couple other things, but that's sitting there in the fall as something to see if this is the new Marvel TV approach. Is it any different? Is it any better? And who else is in it? That's the other thing. It's like Bettany has been in it for the longest time, but we have not had a supporting cast announcement. And Vision has never struck me as the kind of character that could really kind of truly be the be-all, end-all of something. So what other Marvel characters does he get to work with?
Yes. Given the fact that he's as powerful as he is, there would be some cameo that I would find purposeful and easy to pull off because this is Vision's quest. But along the way, who will he encounter?
Oh, we do know, actually, isn't James Spader confirmed to be some version of Ultron coming back for this? I think he is.
Okay. We'll see how that transpired.
Yeah, so that's the one, actually. Actually, I put that in the category of curiosity, too.
Yeah. So up next, Ebon Moss-Bachrach talks Doomsday experience. Let's hear what he has to say about this experience, Brian. Is he going to be on the list of hype men? Or is he going to keep it, you know, even keel and not go overboard? Let's see. What did he say?
He's making no attempt at the James Gunn Award this week. He's keeping it real. He's keeping it real. So
okay.
So here we go. Quote, Marvel movies are, again, talking to Josh Horowitz, by the way. This is Happy, Sad, Confused is definitely, if you're a fan of the genre, is a must watch. Quote, Marvel movies are so interstellar and so galactic and conceptual, it's very hard sometimes to understand what's going on in the story. And Doomsday was a little bit harder for me to hold all of the parts. I mean, I knew where I was. I knew which planet. I knew which universe, but how it was connecting to other universes, I would have to go, Joe, meaning Joe Russo, I know you've talked me through this already, but can you just tell me one more time? End quote. So he's saying he's just as confused as the rest of us are probably going to be about the story. To which he then added, now this is actually vintage Marvel, so I don't know if this is good or bad, but in case you were wondering, quote, I did read a full script, but these scripts change quite a bit. It didn't have a third act. I don't think it had an ending because I don't think anyone gets to see that stuff. End quote.
Here's the thing. This could be good because they could be setting us up for some surprises, which I'm okay with, because right now it seems difficult for me to be surprised about anything about this movie, given what we've seen, given what we've heard, given what scenarios people have been talking about that seem logical as far as the story. So this is good because it brings me back to when Mark Hamill didn't know some of the lines that he was going to be delivering. He found out in the movie what was happening.
Yeah, and Rise of the MCU makes this point clear that at every step along the way, the Marvel movies scripts have never, the whole point of the James Gunn, we don't greenlight something until the script is locked, is literally basically an anti-Marvel statement, because the Marvel formula was always that it was constantly in flux. So that's what I said. I don't necessarily interpret what he's saying about the script not having an ending or a third act when he read it as being like an automatic negative, because Marvel has always operated that way. I think he is just he's hinting at sort of the grandiosity of the spectacle is at times a little bit confusing, even for the people who are in it, right? Because we heard that talk of I think Kevin said there were days where there were 35 different Marvel characters and actors on set for the same scene. It's I think they're kind of telling you, that gets a little much sometimes. So we'll see, but it doesn't necessarily mean, I'm skeptical. I remain skeptical of the quality of the project, but this particular quote to me just felt like, it's just Marvel being Marvel, as opposed to, oh my God, this is a problem.
I mean, it also takes me back to Chris Nolan and what he said to, I think, Matt Damon, as far as how they were going to be able to pull certain things off. And he's like, well, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Yeah. Listen, a good idea is a good idea. And nowadays, a good idea is not far-fetched in terms of how quickly we can be able to get things done now. So that whole James Gunn, we're not greenlighting anything until there's a script ready. Come on, man. We already know that statement has already been null and void.
Yeah, debunked. And as we know with Supergirl, they're basically doing the same thing Marvel's doing, right? The 3 different endings, testing it, figuring it. I mean, it's the same. It's the same creative process.
What did Alan Cumming had to say about Doomsday characters and X2 revisiting X2?
So on Doomsday, he simply dropped and confirmed there's a number of characters who have neither been revealed or apparently rumored that are in the movie. So there's a set of characters that are hidden from view who are in the movie. And so basically said he was on set with some of them, so he knows, but won't say. He then referenced, and this came up a couple of weeks ago, but we didn't have a spot for it, and I really wanted to get to it. He talked about reconnecting with his fellow X-Men actors who he worked with on X2, X-Men United, back in 2004. And he said something that I think sent me down the rabbit hole to revisit exactly what he was talking about. So he basically said for him, playing Nightcrawler in Doomsday was kind of cathartic. And he said for X2, quote, it's one of those films where I think we, meaning him, Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart, James Marsden, Rebecca Romijn, Hugh Jackman also, we were all so traumatized that we were bonded in trauma and we stayed in touch, end quote. And he said that his X-Men colleagues who he worked with on Doomsday are actually people that he's seen and spent time with a lot personally in the 2 decades between. And so he said, quote, going back to it, meaning Nightcrawler, after all these years was great because I really did like the character. So to go back and play him now, and also in this film, it's like a superhero soup. I just can't keep up, end quote. Do you remember? So X2 at the time was considered one of the great achievements in the early days of superhero filmmaking. I did not remember at the time there being so much controversy around it. I know that Bryan Singer subsequently became a very controversial figure. He was canceled from Hollywood for a time. Are you aware of the degree of stuff that happened on X2? Because I went back and actually started to look for it. And there was stuff I had not heard of.
I've always heard there was something, but nothing too specific. But I do know of what Bryan Singer has been accused of.
So there's actually the feature that you should read is actually from COVID in Hollywood Reporter, July of 2020. And the reason why I wanted to bring the story up, because this story, even though it's traumatic and it's not fun for everyone, is the literal birth of Kevin Feige in the MCU. It's the moment that he appears. And it's like it's a footnote to the story. And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because it's kind of a cool little like sliding doors moment of Hollywood. So I'm not going to give you the full rundown of Bryan Singer, but obviously usual suspects. You know, they hire him to do X-Men. He doesn't have any knowledge. He doesn't like the comics, but the producer of the movie convinces him to do it.
By the way,
Singer.
Before we get into that, I just want to say Usual Suspect is, if you like movies, that is a movie that you just have. Like, I don't know, do we have that in our top 50? I don't think we have it in our top 50, Brian.
No, but that's not the century. That's not the century.
Oh, that's right. It's not
95. Yeah. Bailed out.
Got it.
Yeah.
But Usual Suspect is a classic film, you know.
Yeah. That is one of the great film twists of all time, too.
Yes, absolutely. He was doing what's his dude's name? M. Night Shyamalan. Doing the twists at the end of the films. That was the first one where I watched it. I didn't want to see it, but my friend forced me to watch it. He was just like, yo, you gotta see it. So I couldn't leave. So I watched it and I was like, yo, you know, Usual Suspect. If you haven't watched it, watch it. Don't look it up. Just watch it, because it can spoil a lot, you know?
Yeah, it's also one of those classics where like that's one of the first movies that Chris McQuarrie wrote. Obviously goes on to direct Mission Impossible, top director now. As we said, Bryan Singer, that's his mainstream. But also, you know, the cast, it's really, you get introduced to Benicio del Toro, right? Who's still with us 30 years later. Like, you know, Kevin Spacey gets canceled, but this is kind of the rise of Kevin Spacey occurs kind of off this film as well. So there's some pretty cool cast members and stuff in this. It's definitely a must watch for anyone. Anyway, so Singer already had problems, but because X-Men winds up being such a hit, they of course give him a bigger budget. They bring him back for X2. So in this Hollywood Reporter story, they talk about an event that maybe some folks watching this will remember better than I did. I did not remember this. So apparently Singer was very deep into drugs and on-set drug addiction while this movie was being shot.
I didn't know
to the point where he filmed an elaborate stunt sequence involving the X-Jet without any of the stunt coordinators or stunt people present, and forced the cast members to participate. A stunt in which Hugh Jackman was apparently materially injured and left bleeding on set afterwards, which led to the thing I did remember, which was the famous confrontation between the cast and Singer, where Halle Berry told him, "You can kiss my entire." That I knew that quote. It came because of this. Apparently, that actually happened on set, and they were allowed to get away with it. He was somehow retained on the project. Project goes on to be a huge hit, and then not only that, they brought him back. That's the thing that I was like, they brought him back, and then Days of Future Past winds up being a mega hit. And he still was having problems. But that stunt, it's a footnote in the story. That stunt, because of that stunt gone wrong, which had all sorts of liability problems, apparently after the confrontation with the actors, the one change the studio made was they dispatched a young production assistant to shadow Bryan Singer. And that production assistant was Kevin Feige. And it's the first time that he's like now in and around the director. Remember, before he was kind of handing the actor pages of the comics. Now he's like, you're on set every day, and your sole task is to make sure Bryan Singer doesn't melt down and cause problems, true disaster for us.
Yeah. Wow. It would be interesting to know were there any moments where Kevin felt that he would have to sort of intervene in a situation. That would be interesting.
I would guarantee you he has seen some stuff, because the stuff in this story that talks about how Singer ran his set, like supposedly he had this like ever-changing entourage. He had some very suspicious interactions with a lot of younger people that he brought on set. There was even a reference to something I don't remember. Like if you remember the original X-Men movie, the 99 one or the 2001, you remember the kid who plays Pyro, not the Pyro in the second one. That's a real part. The kid who just plays Pyro in that one scene in the classroom with Rogue and Iceman.
I think so, yes.
So that kid was not an actor before and never an actor since. Supposedly, he was given the part by Bryan Singer for personal reasons.
Got it. Leave Michael alone.
I think it just goes to show you, though, how twisted Hollywood is, that like everyone who lived this experience, right? And you're talking about by the time of X2, I mean, Halle Berry's a big deal. Ian McKellen has done Lord of the Rings, right? Patrick Stewart has obviously been Picard. Like Hugh Jackman is now a megastar. Like they stand together against this guy on the set. The studio not only keeps him, but then, like I said, they rehired him to work with the same people a decade later.
Awkward. That's what that is.
And nobody. So the only change they made, and I remember this at the time of Days of Futures Past, they didn't let Singer promote the film. So he was not in any of the interviews alongside the original cast. But like everyone played ball and everyone sounded nice and all like nostalgic. And you're like,
they got paid.
And the movie winds up being a massive, it's still the highest grossing X-Men movie to date. And you're like, I don't know. And that's the thing is like Singer, you know, the last major project he did was obviously Bohemian Rhapsody, where he was fired from the film. It was finished by a different director, but you look at it, it's like made $910 million worldwide. It's like, that's why the guy kept getting chances, because he kept making the studio money, even though it was a disaster in every sense of the word. So Alan Cumming basically reawakened all that with that one like trauma comment of like, oh, let's go revisit what he's talking about. But it is like, it does, like I said, it's like, if that doesn't happen, is Kevin? Like that is, it certainly reads as one of those moments where like Kevin's integration into the process of Marvel really kind of takes flight because of Bryan Singer's shenanigans.
And his, I guess, perhaps passion to come full circle and provide a different experience for this new X-Men.
It's what gives you hope. It's what gives you some hope, right? This is clearly the most personal endeavor of all the Marvel ones that he's been a part of. So
yeah. Well, yeah, let us know in the comment section below what you guys thought of this episode of Marvel Roundup. Charlie Cox. The list goes on. I'm pretty sure Vincent D'Onofrio is going to probably be next. Keeps on talking about season 1 and how that could have just messed up everything for how, yeah, man, that's the way it's being referred to. But let's see. Vision Quest, there's a lot of curiosity there for Vision Quest. Let us know in the comment section below what you guys think of Vision Quest. Ebon Moss-Bachrach talks about his experience on Doomsday. He didn't go overboard, but let's see, man. We're still a long ways away, but I'm done trying to listen to what experience anyone had on that. You know, I just want to see the movie. You know, because we've been talking about this for too long already, yo.
I'm convinced that trailer's coming next week with Mando Grogu. It's been all quiet, man. It's been all quiet on that front for the last couple of weeks. I'm convinced it's going to be there.
Okay. And Alan Cumming talks about his experience on X2 and having to come back to that character of Nightcrawler for this movie, Avengers Doomsday. So we'll see, man. There's a lot to look forward to and see. You know, we got to keep seeing what people are doing and saying to understand what possibly may be happening. So remember, if you haven't heard it anywhere else, you heard it here first on the Nerd Gen Report. Please remember to hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.